The bank app showed 1140 talents, 6 years of savings, $15,000 for my first house gone and one transfer to my sister's wedding. I was still in my hospital scrubs, sitting under the parking garage lights, when I started laughing so hard I could barely breathe. Then I called my mother. "Did you take it?" She didn't even deny it. "Megan needed it more than you did," she said. "You'll earn it back." So I locked the card, reported the payment, and drove home. At 9:07 the next morning, Megan called me screaming, "Tina, what did you do?" But she wasn't panicking about the money. Sunday dinner at my mother's house always smelled like roasted chicken coffee and the lemon cleaner she used on the kitchen counters. By dessert, I was already carrying plates to the sink. Nobody asked me to. They never had to. My mother Deborah poured coffee for my younger sister Megan before she poured any for herself. Megan barely looked up from her phone. I noticed because I always noticed. One daughter got served, the other learned to serve. At 34, I could manage a delivery room at 3 in the morning with alarms going off, doctors calling orders, and a terrified husband asking me if his wife was going to be okay. I had been a labor and delivery nurse for 12 years. People trusted me when things got messy. My family trusted me for a different reason. They trusted me to clean up the mess. When I was 9 and my parents fought about bills, I washed dishes until the shouting stopped. When Megan forgot a school project, I stayed up helping her finish it. When something broke, somebody needed a ride, or a bill showed up at the worst possible time, everyone somehow ended up looking at me. "You're the strong one," my mother would say. For years I heard praise. I didn't understand it was also an assignment. That spring, I had finally saved something nobody else knew how much I wanted. A house. Nothing impressive. 2 bedrooms, blue shutters, a front porch that leaned slightly to one side. The kitchen was small, but there was enough room for a real table. I had saved $15,000 over 6 years. Extra shifts, packed lunches, vacations. I watched other people take. I used to drive past that house after work and slow down just enough to picture my key turning in the front door. My grandfather George would have understood. He had been the only person in the family who ever seemed bothered by how much I carried. Before he died, he once watched me clear another dinner table and told me quietly, "Be careful when people start calling your sacrifice love." I hadn't understood him then. Across the table, Megan was talking about her wedding. The vineyard venue, the flowers, almost 200 guests. My mother kept smiling, but every few seconds her eyes landed on me. Then dinner ended. Megan went back to her phone. Dad disappeared into the living room. And as I turned on the faucet, my mother came into the kitchen and closed the door behind her. "Tina," she said, reaching for a dish towel, "we need $15,000. I turned off the faucet. $15,000. My mother folded the dish towel once neatly, like we were discussing groceries. That's what Megan still needs for the wedding. I waited for the part where she asked. It never came. "You'll cover it," she said. I looked through the kitchen doorway. Megan was laughing at something on her phone. Dad sat in his recliner with the television low enough to hear us and high enough to pretend he couldn't. "That money is for my house." Mom's face barely changed. "You can save again." Closing was less than 3 weeks away. She knew that. I had shown her pictures of the blue shutters. I had told her how long it took me to save. Megan only gets one wedding, and I only have one down payment. Her mouth tightened. Then came the familiar list. She carried me for 9 months. She worked when she was tired. She sacrificed for her children. She never expected repayment, except apparently she did. From the doorway, Megan said, "Tina, it's not like you'll be homeless." I turned toward her. She shrugged. "You make good money. You always land on your feet." There it was again. The compliment that always arrived right before somebody asked me to give something up. I set the plate on the counter. "No." Mom blinked. I had said no to patients, doctors, salespeople, co-workers begging me to cover shifts, but saying it in that kitchen felt almost illegal. "No," I repeated. "I'm buying the house." Megan stared at me as if I had canceled her wedding myself. Mom tried guilt first, then disappointment, then silence. That was the part I should have feared. She stopped arguing. Her shoulders relaxed. A small smile touched her mouth. "We'll work it out." The next day, my phone became a family hotline. Aunt Linda called me selfish. A cousin reminded me Megan had dreamed about this wedding for years. One of Mom's friends told me money comes and goes, but family is forever. Nobody asked why Megan's dream cost exactly what I had saved for mine. By Tuesday evening, after a 14-hour shift, I was sitting in my car in the hospital garage with a cold coffee between my knees. I opened my banking app, $11.40. I refreshed it. Same number. Then I saw the payment, $15,000. Wedding expenses. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I remembered the hospital. 3 months earlier, emergency surgery. Morphine. Bills piling up at home. I had handed Mom my bank card and trusted her to keep everything current until I recovered. I changed my password later. I never imagined I needed to protect myself from my own mother. I started laughing. Hard. Because suddenly every sacrifice made sense. Every emergency. Every Tina can handle it. I called her. She admitted it before I finished the question. Megan needed it more. Then she said softly, "You always come around." That was when the laughter stopped. I locked the card, reported the payment as unauthorized, changed every access point I could, and before sunrise, the wedding money was under review. At 9:07, the next morning, Megan called me screaming. Megan didn't say hello. "What did you do?" Her voice was so loud I pulled the phone away from my ear. Behind her, I could hear movement, a door shutting, someone talking fast. "The venue called," she said. "They said the payment is being disputed. They want another payment today, or they're releasing the date." I said nothing. "Tina, fix it." There it was. Not, "Why did Mom take your money?" Not, "Are you okay?" Fix it. I looked across my kitchen at the mortgage paperwork still clipped together on the counter. "Did you know?" I asked. "Know what?" "That I told Mom no." Silence. "Megan. She said you were upset. She said you'd get over it." My hand tightened around the phone. "So you knew the money was mine. I knew Mom handled it. You knew I said no." She started crying then, but even her panic had an edge of anger. "It's my wedding. What was I supposed to do? Ask where $15,000 came from. You always make things work." I closed my eyes. That sentence sounded different now. Not like trust, like permission. "I'm not fixing this." Her breathing stopped for half a second. Then she exploded. "You're going to ruin everything, no. I'm stopping something that never should have happened." I ended the call before she could answer. An hour later, Dad was outside my apartment. Robert stood on the steps with both hands in his jacket pockets, looking smaller than he ever did at the head of the dinner table. "Your mother made a mistake," he said. "She took my savings. She thought she was helping Megan. Would you call it helping if someone else did it?" He stared at the concrete. Then he said something he clearly hadn't meant to say. "She did something like this with your grandfather." I stopped moving. Dad looked up too late. "What near the end?" "With some of his money. It was complicated." "No. Complicated was a medical chart. This was a pattern." That evening I called Great Aunt Helen. She was quiet for several seconds after I told her what Dad had said. Then she gave me one name, Rebecca Collins, the attorney who had handled my grandfather's affairs. 2 days later, Rebecca sat across from me in a small office above a hardware store, listening without interrupting. When I finished, she opened a folder. "Your grandfather was afraid this might happen again," she said. "Again." That word landed harder than the missing money. She explained that my mother had once managed George's finances when he became frail. She had also used money without permission. He never turned her in, but afterward he changed the way part of his estate was protected. For a moment I almost felt sorry for Mom. Then I remembered the $11. Understanding her past didn't make my future hers to spend. By Sunday, the whole family wanted me back at the table. This time nobody had set out dinner. The scrape of chair legs stopped when I walked into my mother's dining room. No roast chicken, no coffee, no dessert waiting on the counter. Just my mother, my father, Meg and Aunt Linda, and 3 relatives arranged around the table like I had been called in for sentencing. There was one empty chair, mine. I stayed standing. Aunt Linda spoke first. "Family doesn't do this to family." I looked at my mother. "No, they shouldn't." Linda missed the point. "Mom didn't." She folded her hands. "If you stop the dispute and tell everyone this was a misunderstanding, I'll pay you back." "With what?" "That isn't the point." "It was exactly the point." Megan's face was swollen from crying. "The venue gave my date away," she said. "Ethan's asking questions. Vendors are backing out." Mom leaned forward. "Look what this has done. Not what she had done. What this had done." I pulled out the empty chair and sat down. "You asked me for $15,000. Mom's jaw tightened. I said no. "Tina, you used my access anyway. I'm your mother." That wasn't my question. The table shifted. Dad stared at his hands. Linda looked offended on Mom's behalf. I turned to Megan. "Did you know I said no?" She looked at Mom. That told me enough. "Megan." Her eyes filled again. Yes. Nobody moved. And you still let her use my money. Mom said you'd be fine. There it was, the family motto. Tina will be fine. Tina will recover. Tina will pay. Mom pushed back from the table. Stop making yourself the victim. Your sister lost her wedding because you wanted to prove a point. I stood. No. Megan lost a wedding built on money that wasn't hers. Then I picked up my purse. I didn't slam the door. I didn't need to. 2 days later, Ethan called. His voice was quiet. Megan said your mom gifted the wedding money. Was it actually yours? Yes. Did you agree to it? No. That was all I gave him. No speech, no warning, no suggestion about his relationship. He thanked me and hung up. By the end of the week, the engagement was over. Megan told everyone I had destroyed her life. But Ethan hadn't left because I told him what to do. He left because when he asked Megan whether taking my money was wrong, she defended it. Weeks later, I sat in a small hearing room with my mother across from me. Her attorney had papers stacked neatly in front of him. My family filled the row behind her. Mom looked calm, almost relieved. She still believed I would rescue her before the consequences became real. When I was asked whether my statement was accurate and whether I intended to continue cooperating, Mom turned toward me. Her eyes softened. "You always come around," she whispered. For 34 years, she had been right. I looked at her. "You built your whole plan around that." Then I turned forward. "Yes," I said. "My statement is accurate." Behind me, someone inhaled sharply. Mom's certainty disappeared. And for once, I wasn't the person scrambling to put it back. Consequences didn't arrive all at once. They arrived in small, ordinary ways. A new bank card in the mail, a notice confirming my old access had been closed, a call from the fraud department saying the disputed funds had been restored while the case moved forward. Then 3 days before I thought I would lose the house, the title company approved a short extension. I closed the following Friday. The key felt almost too light in my hand for something I had fought that hard to keep. Mom faced her own process after that. There were interviews, records, repayment requirements, and legal meetings I stopped trying to track. I didn't need revenge. I needed distance. Her access to my money was gone permanently. Any communication about the case went through the proper people instead of through family dinners and guilt-filled phone calls. Rebecca also explained that part of Grandpa George's property was still held in a trust. Years earlier, after Mom had used his money without permission, he had added protections tied to serious financial dishonesty. When Mom's case reached that threshold, those protections mattered. I didn't celebrate. It didn't feel like winning an inheritance. It felt like Grandpa had built a fence he wished he'd been brave enough to use while he was alive. Dad stayed with Mom. That hurt more than I expected. Some childish part of me had believed that once the truth was written down, once nobody could call it a misunderstanding anymore, he would finally choose me. He didn't. He chose the same quiet life he had been protecting for decades. Megan lost the wedding. Ethan didn't come back. But she wasn't charged just because she had known where the money came from. Her consequences were different. She had to live with the fact that she knew I had said no and accepted the money anyway. By fall, the blue shutters were mine. So was the crooked porch. So was the little kitchen. The first few weeks I ate at my table alone. Sometimes peace is so unfamiliar it feels like loneliness at first. Then one rainy Saturday, someone knocked. Megan stood on the porch holding 2 coffees. No makeup, no engagement ring, no speech prepared. I let her in. She sat across from me and stared at the table for a long time. Then she asked quietly, "Mom did this to you for years, didn't she?" "Yes." Her eyes dropped. "And she taught me to think it was normal." I didn't rescue her from that sentence. She needed to feel it. After a while, I poured the coffee into 2 matching mugs. At the same time, nobody first, nobody second. For once, neither of us owed the other anything. The house key still sits beside my coffee every morning. Sometimes I look at it and remember that parking garage. $11 in my account. $15,000 gone. Me laughing until my ribs hurt because the truth had finally become too obvious to deny. My family had called me strong for years. What they meant was useful. I paid with money, time, silence, and pieces of myself I thought I could always replace. I can't, and I don't anymore. Mom still doesn't speak to me. Dad stayed beside her. Megan and I are rebuilding something slowly, without pretending one conversation erased the past. That part matters. Boundaries don't magically make life painless. They just make the pain honest. If you're the person everyone expects to handle everything, remember this: being capable does not make you responsible for everyone else's choices. Saying no does not make you cruel. And love that disappears when you stop paying for it was never as unconditional as you were told. If you've ever been there, share your story in the comments. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Then protect your seat at your own table.